Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our LinkedIn Live event to deep dive into Everest Group Engage London 2025. I'm joined by Amy Fong, Rohitashwa Aggarwal, and Ricky Sundrani, who you're going to hear from in a little bit to talk about some of the things that they're really looking forward to with the conference that we've planned for March 31st and April 1st in London. We're really excited about this program and this LinkedIn Live. And Amy, Rohit, Ricky, thank you guys for joining. This LinkedIn Live really is to get you all excited for this phenomenal program that we've built for GBS leaders, sourcing and vendor management leaders, in the hopes that you all join us again, March 31st, April 1st in London on the South Bank in the Nine Elms neighborhood. So with that, I want to show you a couple of highlights of the program, and if we can head to a slide so that you can see some of the information and insight that we've got planned for you. Join more than 150 attendees at the program. We're conducting the conference at the Park Hyatt London River Thames, a brand new, beautiful hotel on the South Bank of the Thames in the Nine Elms neighborhood. That if nothing else, take a time for a day out of the office to join us in a beautiful venue overlooking the river, getting insight from Everest Group analysts, from leading practitioners, and from external thought leaders on all things what's now and next in global business services, sourcing, and vendor management. At the end of the webcast, if you have any questions about pricing or how to register, there will be a link with a call to action. You can visit the website to learn more. But in the meantime, let's get to some of the highlights of the program. On the next slide, one of the things that we want to sort of call out is why engage and what has Everest Group planned for this conference for heads of GBS, sourcing and vendor management. The theme of the conference is the pragmatic edge, execute with ambition. And it really is about blending the best in class research from Everest Group, from my colleagues Rohit, Ricky, and Amy, with leading case study and practitioner perspectives to help all of our delegates who are in attendance with us identify the edge of their capabilities of business, have plans and action items for dealing with the ever evolving and dynamic inputs from things going on in the macro, in the geopolitical sphere, in the macro economy, and establish actions for building a path for sustained growth and performance from your GBS, from your partner network, from your sourced services and technologies. We called the event Engage because our whole ethos is about connecting our attendees with each other, with Everest Group experts, with our sponsors, with the limited number of providers in the room, with the external thought leaders that we've recruited for the event, in an intimate, highly interactive, highly engaging gathering. So that's why engage and why attend, for the best in class from Everest Group, combined with the best in class from external. More importantly, on the next slide, one of the things that we're really proud of is the way that we've built an advisory board to guide us on all of the content planned for the conference, all of the experiences planned for the conference, recommended speakers, recommended experiences in terms of networking formats. And you can see here some of the leaders that we are truly grateful for having guided us on the agenda development. Many, or almost, it's fair to say at this point, most of these advisors are also participating in the agenda in certain ways. So you'll get to hear a phenomenal story from the Voice team about how they've moved to commercialize their GBS. You'll get to hear from Vanessa Gleason and Jessica Shields at Dexcom about how, and actually Rohit will talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. I don't want to steal Rohit's thunder. But our advisory board, on behalf of Everest Group and my colleagues here joining, thank you all for helping us shape an agenda that we're really excited about. Again, Amy, Ricky, and Rohit are going to share some of the sessions and a couple sort of talking points on what they're excited about with some of the agenda. But the in-between is all of the other experiences that we've built. I also want to highlight the external speakers on the program. So those of you who are wondering opportunities to meet with industry peers or functional peers, wonderful slate of external speakers joining us for the program. Please do, if you know these folks, please do reach out to them ahead of time and make sure that you've got plans to connect at the conference. All of these external speakers will be joined by 14 Everest Group analysts. We've got more than 30 speakers presenting on the program and helping to create those phenomenal experiences. Some of the companies that are joining the event from an attendance perspective, you can see here. We'd very much like to add your company to the list. We represent global brands, Fortune Global 100 brands on this list, leaders from, again, GBS functional roles, sourcing and vendor management functional roles, some customer experience, some IT services, with the conference being about helping all of these people execute with ambition in practicality and pragmatism. Last thing I want to highlight from an introductory standpoint is just what the agenda looks like at a glance from the 31st of March and 1st of April. We have a session that Amy's going to talk a little bit about happening on Monday. Actually, Ricky and Rohit are also going to talk about a couple of our Monday sessions in terms of workshops. But Monday afternoon, we kick off with content and our opening keynote right into a wonderful reception. We're excited to kick off the day with about a third of day of content on 31st of March. And then following day, Tuesday, a full slate of highly interactive, facilitated networking opportunities, sessions, keynotes, proper time for meal break and to duck out for a client call or something that you might have going on. So the agenda is pretty full, but we've also thoughtfully balanced it with plenty of opportunity for break to make sure that those of you that do join us at the Park Hyatt have the opportunity again to make your own connections, make your own agenda, and make the most of your time at the conference. So if you have any questions on some of the program, again, please visit the website. You'll see the call to action at the end of the event, or search for Everest Group Engage London. But the real reason why we asked to join is to give our subject matter experts, my colleagues Amy, Rohit, and Ricky, a little chance to share some of their perspectives on what they think will really resonate for our delegates joining us in about a month's time. So with that, I first want to turn it to Rohit. And Rohit, I know you've picked a couple of sessions that you think are worthy of sort of sharing with the folks here on this LinkedIn Live. So a couple clicks from there we go. Rohit, I'll turn it to you to talk a little bit about this session from our CEO and our wonderful partner, Deborah Cox.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark. And let me start off by moving a little because the lights probably went off, assuming I'm not in the room anymore. But I'm really excited about this. I've had the fortune of working with this team and the extended team over the last several months as we have put together this conference. So really blessed to have a great advisory board, external speakers, and attendee profile. So very much looking forward to this. You told me to pick two only. It was really hard because each of these sessions is so brilliant. And hopefully we'll hear a bit about a few more sessions from Ricky and Amy as well. But my top two picks, right, if I have to, the first one is a session which two of my very close colleagues are going to do a workshop on day one. GBS model has truly evolved in the past decade. It is no longer an offshore-centric model. We see a lot of activity. I'm going to just wave my arm to try and get the lights back on. Here we go. But what GBS leaders in the last 5 years have witnessed is they are at an inflection point where they are no longer responsible for back office centers. They are no longer responsible just for the arbitrage agenda. They are really driving key business services performance. They are speaking to the CXO agenda. And to do that, the mindset needs to change. And we already see some activity in the market, but there is a lot more to be done. So what these two experts, Jimit and Deborah, along with our team, have put together is they have broken down what that mindset feels like. They have identified key personas, characteristics, what it takes to switch, which persona is suited for which situation. I don't want to give away a lot, but I would recommend every GBS leader to look for this session as they attend Engage. The second session that I'll talk about is something I'm personally hosting. I have had the fortune of working with some fine practitioners over the last several years. So we will have leaders from WTW, Shell, Optum, and Chad has been responsible in building the GBS at WTW for the last several years. Susan leads the Shell business operations. And then Uma represents Optum Global Business Services, which is part of United Healthcare. So we have different industries from financial services to energy to healthcare, and each of them having a very expansive network of capabilities spanning global locations. What we are going to talk about is how do these experts who run these companies go about building the right mix of people and places. How do they plan the population? How do they think about bringing in the right supply? What places, what balancing, all of those critical aspects. Because last 3 years, my team has tracked 1,000 new center setups. That is phenomenal growth, but that also creates a lot of demand supply crunch. How do you stay focused on right places and people is a key aspect. So these are my top 2 sessions, but you instigated me earlier, Mark, when you spoke about the architecture session to slide in another third. Like I said, everyone who's listening in, this is a packed agenda. You're going to love every session. Trust me, you do not want to schedule client calls at the side during these 2 days. You will have your hands full and you will love every session. So look at the agenda. But the third one that I'll say, as this evolution happens, companies who are new to this, companies who are now stabilizing, and companies who have achieved a lot, everybody is thinking about what is the right design for me, which fits my future agenda. How do I serve my enterprise stakeholders better? So a phenomenal piece of research that our team has done is called GBS Architectures. So I will again have my 2 brilliant colleagues, Deborah and Bharat, along with 2 very renowned industry practitioners, Vanessa Gleason from Takeda and Jessica Shields from Dexcom, talking about how do you organize a GBS? What is the architecture? What works? What doesn't? When does it need to change? So again, I'll stop talking before I'm asked to, but I cannot be less excited about this. Absolutely, looking forward to this. And back to you, Mark.
And Rohit, thank you for also highlighting the architecture session. The important thing that Rohit, that you just said there is, while we're featuring many of the external practitioners and thought leaders joining us on the agenda, Rohit's session that you can see on screen here, the architecture session he just spoke of, and the mindset session previously that he spoke of from Deborah and Jimit are all also underpinned by a wealth of Everest Group research. So we're blending all of these content experiences with what's Everest Group's insight, both qualitative and quantitative, on the topics that we're covering, and then layering in the input and experiences from our executives. That's what I love about building conferences with colleagues like the 3 of you. The other thing that I will say before we turn to Amy and some of her highlights is the other parts of the agenda besides sessions will feature things like facilitated networking. So when we break into facilitated networking, we're going to have the opportunity to do a click further with leaders like Chad, Susan, and Uma on some of what they talked about on stage, Then we're going to be able to join them and hear a little bit more about some of their insights. So blending plenty of opportunities for interaction for all of you to network and make new connections with these leaders. In addition to time for a meeting with Everest Group analysts. Rohit, thank you for the highlights, and all good on sneaking in the third. There is too much to cover. That's why I asked to limit to 2. Next, I want to hear from Amy. Amy's got a couple of great session highlights as well. Amy, let me turn it to you, and you can take us through some of what you're looking forward to.
Sure, thanks. So Mark, again, limited us to 2, and I'll probably sneak in a third in here as well. But, this pragmatic solutions keynote, we had a similar format in our last Engage event, and I love this format. Each of these speakers will be up there with a vignette of really something powerful they did in a compact amount of time, but it was very meaningful. It wasn't 40 minutes of hearing someone go on about all the challenges they faced. It was, this is what I did, and this is the value I delivered, and here's the practical way to implement or follow me. And then an opportunity to speak with them throughout the conference. So I think this is a great format compared to a lot of the events I go to. The speakers we have here are phenomenal. We have Madeline from Sanofi talking about building an enterprise leadership team. Sergey talking about GBS turnaround and reactivation at Kraft Heinz. Marcel from ABN AMRO talking about implementing long-term strategic workforce plan. And then Angela from Mars talking about building a leadership succession plan and transitioning into a head role. So all of those are things that are relevant to you no matter what part of the organization you lead. I'm really excited to hear what they all have to say. I think this will be a really powerful way to get the morning kicked off, or at the beginning of the event. The second one that I have, I'll give a second to bring that up, is focused on the external partner portfolio. And you'll notice that Rohit's covered a lot of GBS topics, which are going to be great if you're a GBS leader. This is a can't miss. If you are managing external service providers in business process services, in IT, engineering services, tech services, this is also the place for you. We'll have Jay from, in this particular session, Jay from JTI, who is part of their IT organization, and Madhu from Microsoft. Both of these gentlemen have phenomenal backstories and histories and lessons learned, and they've seen things. I'm going to have a conversation with them about the considerations they have when they're looking at optimizing their partner portfolio and balancing complexity with efficiency and strong partnerships. Timely. I'm sure we will wander a little bit around because they both have a lot to say. So I'm very excited to have them there. If I were to sneak in one more topic that's not on here yet, I'm planning to have a follow-up after this with some of our partners who are close to the market, who can talk about following service providers and what do you need to look for in service providers of the future. So as we're going into this changing time, the era of AI, what do you need to be looking at in terms of the capabilities and the investments from your service providers? So I think regardless of where you sit in an organization, you'll find something for you. I'm really excited to see a very diverse list of titles in our attendees, and I think that'll make it a very valuable discussion. And I want to circle back to Mark's point about the reason we call this Engage. We kind of view engagement as our superpower at Everest Group. And so much of this will be about attendees meeting each other, attendees talking to analysts. Our last event, we were just talking to someone yesterday who was there, and she was recalling a couple people she met there that she's, still wants to keep talking to, right? So this is as much about the people as it is the content. And I think that it's, there's a lot of events in the market, and we try to keep this very unique in the structure, the format, and the content that we cover. So I will turn it back to Mark to keep us moving, but can't wait to see everyone in London in just a few weeks.
Amy, thanks so much for that perspective on We recognize there are plenty of event opportunities for people to join, and you all are very busy in your day-to-day. So our focus really about this day and a half of content is make your investment being out of the office more than worthwhile. We have every confidence that, as Amy talked about, even her discussion here with Jay and Madhu that she's going to lead, in our prep calls, the level of depth and interesting sound bites that have come out, it's bound to be something that's like, you're going to hear a sound bite just from this session that was like, all right, this whole conference has been made worth it, my whole time out of the office. And the entire agenda will be riddled with things like that. Amy, thanks for the update and the highlights on these couple of sessions. Want to turn it to Ricky, a colleague of a couple of the presenters who are going to be on some of the sessions that he's highlighting. Really excited to hear about some of the work that Ricky and these presenters have been doing that our attendees will get to hear over the couple of days. Ricky, over to you.
Thanks, Mark. And I think, yeah, building on the theme of the pragmatic edge that we have for this event, right? I mean, we're going to talk about topics which are probably top of mind for a lot of organizations right now, costs. So we kind of had a similar session at a Dallas Engage event as well, and probably was so well attended, over 70 plus people in the audience. So again, we're going to continue the theme on in terms of the value leakage that organizations typically have in their outsourcing contracts. I mean, it fails to see me that in spite of this industry being more than 2 decades strong, we still see a lot of outsourcing contracts not in line with markets, leaving a lot of money on the table. For example, we're going to touch upon three key themes mainly. Touch upon, for example, the key subpar contractual clauses, poorly negotiated COLA clauses, not leveraging benchmarking clauses. I can go on for an hour, right? But additionally, so many organizations are still stuck with leveraging sort of very primitive time and material based or staff augmentation kind of outsourcing deals, while some best in class organizations have really advanced to move to more outcome driven commercial models, making their providers have more skin in the game. And then finally, this session will also talk a bit more about it'll basically force the attendees to think if their SLAs are really fit for purpose. Are they too stringent? And do you have the necessary SLAs being tracked? During a Dallas event as well, right? One of the themes that came out when we spoke to a lot of organizations was that a lot of them complained about subpar experience with their providers, right? What is typically called as the watermelon effect. And that's what we're going to talk about, how to mitigate that. And how some of the organizations, best in class organizations, have been doing that over the last few years. Thus, as the name suggests, it is actually a masterclass on contract cost, contract performance, and key terms. So all of these three gentlemen have over a decade of experience in benchmarking over hundreds of contracts. So we're distilling some great insights coming from these contracts and these contract advisory projects and share it with our audience. The second session, which I'm really interested, and this is actually this is more future looking. This is more of what we call as a now and next of services pricing. Again, very exciting because this has been in the works for many months now. In fact, this is the first time that we are actually going to be talking about it, even though we've been doing some research about it for many months now. So a few months ago, we started thinking about the future of outsourcing contracts. Like, what will they look like 3 to 5 years down the line, given the amount of disruption and changes we are seeing in the market over the last few years? First, it was COVID, then it was a great resignation. Now we have the AI wave, right? So if you pick up a contract from 5 years ago versus now, it will look very different. So for example, we were doing this analysis where we saw that for the last 3 years, while costs have continued to go up in minimal terms as salaries continue to rise due to inflation, the cost to actually serve has shrunk between anywhere between 10 to 15%, right, at a minimum. Thus, it's extremely sort of critical to take a mid to long-term view on how outsourcing costs may change in the near future. So we started evaluating, okay, what are the key factors that will really drive the impact on pricing? And these typically obviously will include AI, right, at the top of it, or top of the list, and perhaps the most critical one, right? We're already starting to see organizations asking the providers to incorporate the impact of AI in their deal renewals and also pass on some of those savings to them. And the ROI can be anywhere between 2x to 10x. Again, followed closely by the explosion of GCC delivery that Rohit was alluding to earlier, that's slowly replacing outsourcing delivery in a lot of organizations, the rising trend of pay for performance or outcome-based deals, and the competition coming in from non-traditional providers, right? I mean, we're seeing all sorts of companies come into the mix and wanting to sort of participate in this space. So these are all exciting developments and things that all organizations should watch out for over the next few years. And thus we invite you to join us in London for this session to learn more about how some of the best-in-class organizations have started taking steps towards this. So, yeah.
Yeah, I want to add on what Ricky said, and David Ricard is in the chat and made a great point that even if you think you're well placed with your own models, there's always a lot to learn in these pricing sessions. The pricing trends, the levers you can pull, they change frequently in the market. I try to encourage all of my clients to do a session with the pricing team at least every quarter, because I hear people all the time say, no, we're locked into our contracts. That's it. 4 years we're stuck, right? That is not true. There is always something that can be changed, right? Contracts are contracts. There's a lot of other things you can be looking at in the constraints of a contract that can dramatically shift your costs, dramatically shift performance. And so I would encourage everyone, that workshop on the first day feels like it's kind of a pre-workshop. Try to get there. It's always, these guys always have great things to say, and it's really beneficial.
Yeah, and I think just echoing what you just said, Amy, and Ricky's point on the evolution of the pricing masterclass work from the October US event we did to this upcoming London event. Ricky, I think it's fair to say that Achint, Abhishek, and Rahul have also sort of updated in real time some of the guidance that we're seeing across our clients. There's some EMEA, EU, and UK bent to some of what they're going to share, which I think is also makes it more contextualized. And you, I think, said when you were talking about this session now and next of services pricing, some of the research that you and team have done is revealing ROI anywhere from 2x to 10x, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think so. We're going to bring in a lot of local examples, case studies of the work that we've done in the European and the UK market, and talk about how organizations in this part of the world are leveraging best-in-class best practices to sort of optimize their outsourcing contracts. Yes, so absolutely.
Yeah, so great. I want to call out Mark Rita is also sneaking in another one from LinkedIn, and appreciate that because it's a really important one. We will have Asim Hussain from the Green Software Foundation and Nitish Mittal in the Sustainability Roundtable. And there's a lot of upheaval in the sustainability and regulatory space right now. So that's a place we really want to make sure we're talking. So sustainability is so important, and it's part of our mission here and our purpose at Everest Group. So I want to make sure we highlight that one too, even though we don't have a slide. That'll definitely be an underlying theme across the entire conference here. So thank you, Rita, for joining and calling that one out.
It is we actually just had a prep call. Thanks, Rita. We did have a prep call with Asim from the Green Software Foundation, the executive director there. He's also going to be joined by Sharon Machado from the ACCA, in addition to Nitish. And that's a facilitated roundtable where Sharon and Asim are going to bring some of what they're hearing from all of their member clients in terms of prioritization, both on sustainability, regulation, and compliance type things, but also opportunity and ESG and CSR as well. So an important discussion that we have heard from a lot of our advisory board members and from our pre-con survey. That's why we wanted to make sure we had some experts to join Nitish and the Everest Group team to discuss that.
And Mark, just another highlight is another thing that makes it really interesting is while we are in London, what is really interesting is that the composition of our attendees is still fairly broader and global. So I'm excited about not only a lot of friends from the industry, senior practitioners who are attending from Europe. So we have people coming in from a large number of Western European and Central Eastern European countries. But also, interestingly, a sizable number of practitioners who are flying in from North America, primarily US, some Canada, but also, and I'm really excited about this, from Australia, from Philippines, from India. So this is truly going to be a fairly global representation and talking about how global meets local, a true mix of that, about all the regulations, all the local topics in Europe, but with a flavor of global aspect, given all of these companies do operate fairly globally. So that's another fascinating part that I'm looking forward to in terms of what you said earlier. This is at the end of the day about allowing all these practitioners to engage with each other, engage with our broader team, and then magic happens when that happens. So really looking forward to that.
Yeah. I think just to add to that, Rohit, I think very strong, a very relevant point. I think for us as well, I think the choice of London is more conscious than coincidental because we've obviously observed that the UK just remain a European leader in AI innovation with strong hubs in London, Cambridge, Edinburgh, and of course a very strong government backing on AI funding. So we've obviously seen that there is the rise of AI-driven automation in financial services is strengthening London's role as a tech finance hub, and Europe's focus specifically on green energy technology, green technology, AI-driven sustainability does align with the broader net zero ambitions that the people here have. And I think the stance that EU and UK have taken right really towards AI, a more proactive regulatory stance with frameworks like the EU AI Act aimed at ensuring more responsible AI deployment. I think this could really enhance trust and safety and making European AI more attractive in the global market. So yeah, very excited it's excited to see how London comes into the picture.
Amy, seems like a natural follow since Rohit and Ricky
I
gave
know.
wonderful sort of wrap ups. What's anything else you want to call out?
I mean, I want to go on the global too, because I think that all the companies that are there are global and operating across different groups. I guess I'll double down on the many different diverse perspectives from both a global organization perspective as well as different functional leaders. We all go to things. I go to a lot of things with procurement leaders. There are a lot of events with IT leaders. There are a lot with GBS leaders, right? And that's great. When we first started talking about the vision for Engage, Mark, when you were just a brand new little events planner at Everest Group a couple years back, we talked about how we really wanted this to be multiple groups coming together, engaging, no pun intended, right? And talking about how we can improve the organization, right? Make our enterprises stronger, more competitive. Every function, every group, every business unit plays a role in that. And I think that there's so much learning that can be done when you put people in a room from different areas. It's the same thing I tell my clients to do with their suppliers. You want innovation? Put your marketing suppliers with your tech suppliers and see what they come up with, right? This is sort of a similar type of thing where you'll see on a lot of these speakers, it feels like it's all over the map. It's intentional, and there's a lot of good and innovation and great ideas that come out of that. I think it benefits everyone. So these are always really fun conversations. We keep it light, we keep it high quality, and looking forward to it.
Thank you, Amy. Rohit, Ricky, thank you as well. I'd say my capstone on this would be, first of all, please do visit the website, check out the rest of the agenda. Join us at Engage London 2025. You don't want to miss out. We will, for those of you that cannot attend, we will be recording the event. There is opportunity to get access to the event after, but nothing like engaging together live and in person over the 2 days of March 31st and April 1st. Thank you all for joining us. For any questions or comments in the chat that there's opportunity for us to follow up, we absolutely will. But on behalf of Amy, Rohit, and Ricky, thank you again. Can't wait to see you March 31st, April 1st at the Park Hyatt London River Thames for Engage London 2025. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.